Welcome to Fantropolis, a place where we're going to put ourselves in a what-if scenario of what if Robert Berathian loved Cersi. I mean, who would love her? Oh yeah. It was a 4-week trip from King's Landing to Winterfell. This was fine by Robert Berathian because it gave him a chance to tell more stories about his love, Cersi. It was last night at camping, so Robert gathered everyone around the campfire. They all were about to hear about their wedding night. Again. So there she was, gorgeous as ever. Cersi pulls back the handle of the crossbow. Then she shoots the boar with such precision, it fell to the ground instantly. Very charming, Robert, but we've heard this all before. Being the king's younger brother, he was one of the very few people that could actually speak to him in such a manner. Of course, that didn't stop Robert from calling out his brother in front of everyone. Ah, Remley, what do you know about love? All you know is lustin'. Cersi herself was sick of the attention. Robert always put the spotlight on her, and it was exhausting. Ever since the death of his first love, Robert took all that pain, all that sadness, and focused it on an over-obsession over Cersi. You know how bad it got? Every single week, Robert would send a raven to her father, thanking him for raising such an outstanding human being. And the stories continue by Robert. All 3 of his children were up front to hear his stories about him and Cersi outdanced everyone at the last ball. Cersi remembers it differently. Robert dragged her all over the floor thinking he was a good dancer. They look like fools. So Robert continues, and he notices one of the guards was looking at Cersi. She was the topic of discussion. Of course he was going to look. But Robert took it as something completely different. He thought this man was glaring at his love with lustful eyes. He calls for his sword. You have looked upon forbidden fruit. Now you will die. It was actually Tyrion that was the one that intervened on the young man's behalf. Your Grace, is it really necessary to spill unnecessary blood over a matter like this? Robert doesn't say anything. Taking a deep breath and changing his demeanor, he takes a step back knowing Tyrion's right. A king should not behave in this manner. He hands his sword to his oldest, telling him to be the one to avenge his mother. One of the things that's different about the story is Robert has paid close attention to his kids, raising them as men, as he says, because this is what Cersi wanted. What Cersi didn't want was him training them in weapons combat since they were 3. So without hesitation, Joffrey takes his dad's sword and plunges it into the man's chest as he falls dramatically into the fire. Everyone is just silent. Robert looks at Tyrion and Jaime and says, "It had to be done." Robert always valued their opinions. He figured he'd stay good with her family with the inclusion of Lancel, and they became his advisors of marriage, like a counsel for Cersi. He had more meetings with them than his actual counsel for war. Because in Robert's opinion, they could always put in a good word with Cersi. It was Tyrion that actually mentioned to him one time, "You know you're married to her, right?" And Robert replies, "You never, ever stop fighting for love, even when you have it." So they finally make it to Winterfell, and Robert makes everyone wait until Cersi gets out of her carriage. He presents her as the most important thing in his life. Cersi reminds him of why they're there in the first place, for Robert to name Ned Stark as the Hand of the King. He greets his old friend and tells him the good news. Originally, it was Jaime who he wanted to name Hand, but Cersi told him the last time Jaime served as Hand of the King, he stabbed that king in the back, so that wouldn't be the most popular decision. Ned thanks Robert, that he's honored. "I'm not trying to honor you. I'm trying to get you to run my kingdom Well, I spend more time with my wife. Cersi just didn't want Jaime that close to Robert. She barely saw him as it is. You see, Cersi and Jaime, they're really close siblings. For the life of her, she could not break away from Robert. Cersi told Tyrion, next time you go to a brothel, take Robert with you. She instructed him to make up something because he would not go by his own free will. And Tyrion, he's Tyrion. He's very smooth and persuasive.
Okay, I found this on the web for his very smooth persuasive. Check it out.
What? Okay, this is Tyrion Lannister we're talking about. He's very smooth and persuasive. He makes up something just out of thin air. He says, if I may, there are several ladies at this establishment that do not know love. Maybe a man that knows something of the subject should go speak with them. And Robert, no hesitation, just marches right to that brothel and makes this epic speech about love. And all these ladies are just gathered, and a few of them walk out because they're so moved and they don't want to work there anymore. So the other they're just it's completely backfired on Tyrion. If Robert's king position was by election, he would have the brothels vote. Let's just say that. The night of the party was really interesting. There was plenty of new people in Winterfell to speak to, but Robert chose to sit down next to his family. Joffrey, by his father's orders, instructed him to go ask for Ned Stark's daughter to dance with him. She's a nice girl. If you fall in love with her, you can marry her, and we can unite our houses. Robert refuses to arrange any of his children for strategic gain. It's something Cersi is not a fan of, arranged marriages. She made him promise he would never put his kids through any of it. He didn't have any idea that this was based off of her displeasure of her own marriage. He thinks she loves him too. When Joffrey walked up to Sansa, he shoulder checked this kid next to him, marking his territory his father had taught him. As the two dance, Cersi looks on with a concerned look. Later, she takes Sansa by the side and tells her, just be careful. Sansa apologizes, thinking that she had done something, to her son, but she's not worried about him. She's worried about her. She sees a lot of her at that age, just eager to get married, not knowing who she was marrying. She tells her just to watch out for signs and think, do I really want to marry this man? Sansa took her advice and really studied Joffrey's behavior. A few days passed and it's time for the joust. Robert stands behind the curtain. He's like, Cersi, she's right there. She's right there. Pulling Lancel close like a brother's embrace, he asks him to joust against him and make him look good in front of Cersi. Lancel, the squire, had no choice. He did what he was told, but not before some encouraging words from Ned Stark. Lean in, and don't get yourself killed. Back in the stands, the fans are treated to a pull-apart brawl between Joffrey and Sir Loras Tyrell, when the king's son got upset when he gave Sansa a rose. The hound had to carry Joffrey on his shoulder. That didn't stop Joffrey from talking a little smack. You're lucky he's holding me back. I'm going to shove that rose up your... Cersi is beet red and embarrassed by her son's behavior. She had let so many things go because she loved the ability to ask for anything she wanted. Except the only thing that she wanted was to spend more time with her brother. And that's something Robert just can't seem to give her. This was her life. She had to choose what she wanted. But what? That was the question. Before we go any further, I just want to thank everyone for hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like, and making a comment. We cut to Bran, who is Ned Stark's youngest son, attempting to climb this big stone wall, but he's stopped by Robert. He goes, "Boy, what are you doing? And have you seen my wife?" You see, Robert has been busy with these council meetings about discussing those damn Targaryens. It was crucially important. He hated being away from Cersi, what duties as a king calls, and duty. So Bran runs off, and Robert gets this idea. Hey, I'm going to climb the stone wall. It's going to accomplish one of two things or both. Either I'm going to be able to see where Cersei's at, and or she's going to see me, and she's going to be impressed. So he climbs, and he's not as big as he is because he actually works out a little bit because he has something to prove, with his wife. That's the one catch of this entire thing. He's not as complacent. He's still a large man, but still, just barely enough to climb. And this is a former soldier we're talking about. This is a guy who won a damn rebellion to get that throne in the first place. So he sees the window and he hears the sound. Now, if you're a Game of Thrones fan and you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what's coming. This happens at the end of episode 1, season 1. So Robert goes through this window and he is shocked to see what he finds. That's his best friend and his wife, who are siblings, So Robert is beyond angry. Speechless, but angry. He lunges for Jaime. The only reason why Robert has the advantage over Jaime is because he caught him with his pants partially down. He can't really fight. So he starts wailing on him. And we're talking just hard punches right to the face. And Jaime tries to crawl away. And Robert tries to choke Jaime. But Cersi knew she had to do something. She yells, "Robert, I love you." And he stands. And he smiles. She's never said that to him before. She runs and she hugs him. Now, meanwhile, Jaime is right behind Robert, right below his knees. Cersi pushes Robert as he trips over Jaime and falls. The last thing Robert sees before he dies was Cersi. So he dies with a partial smile on his face. Cersi looks over to Jaime and says, "The things we do for love." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Again, please hit that subscribe button. As always, follow the road sign.